The next challenger in Offworld Kings, trying to deny Rahi any sort of streak whatsoever, is Cubit.
And that's a scary person. I would not want to meet Cubit in 1v1 Offworld Kings. To be fair, I wouldn't want to meet most of these players. Like, let's be honest, that just sounds scary.
Yeah.
Cubit grinds on the 1v1 pretty hard.
Almost everyone who plays when 1v1s is a little bit better than me at 1v1s, and a big part of the reason why I don't play 1v1s is that volatility. If Mohawk could fix the price volatility, I think I'd play 1v1s more often, but this will be quite the interesting matchup between Rahi and Cubit, probably close to equal. So with that being said, let's get this game on the road. And we'll see what location decides to come up. Ceres again.
Ceres again. I don't know. I personally like me playing about it. This one looks a lot more generous than the first series that players had to deal with, though.
Yeah, at first glance, when I scrolled down to the bottom left, it didn't look more generous. But over here in the top right, you could found as almost anything except for maybe a scavenger up in the top right and be okay. It'd be hard to squeeze a scientist in a good location, but nomads are looking decent, especially with this nice silicon iron double patch down here in the bottom left.
I'm really looking pretty hard at nomad, and I was looking at the top right. I may even, that location pretty much right there. I might have found it slightly differently, but I think that's pretty much where I want to be.
For a 20k debt, I'd say that's an absolute steal for Rahi.
That worked out very well.
We'll have to deal a little bit with diminishing resources, but there are no nukes, and there are so many good tiles over here that she'll be able to use that rotate reclaim just fine. Now, Cubit does get the advantage with his found of being to upgrade to HQ2 right away, but Cubit is extremely space constrained.
Yes, there are a grand total of 8 tiles that Cubit can connect to his HQ game. We'll see how he works with that. Both players also going for water pumps right off the bat. I really just hate that, actually. I was sitting here thinking, maybe I don't like that. Maybe that's okay. No, I think it's probably just bad.
I mean, so Rahi wanted the water just to make some quick cash because nomads don't start with any resources whatsoever. But Cubit going into the water after it's already dirt cheap, that makes 0 sense.
Yeah, and I still don't like it from either player because water didn't have a significant, if water, sure, whatever, but water didn't start at 40. It started in a pretty similar location, about the same as aluminum and silicon. I feel like it may have been better to just go ahead and take your adjacency with those things. Also, here's the final thing that I didn't like about Rahi's found was there was the option of founding a little bit to the right, and you kind of had the ability to split up your aluminum and your silicon just barely, so these power surges couldn't just knock it all out at once. That is going to be a risk that Rahi's going to have to deal with for the duration of this game, and a very slight difference in founding location could have fixed it.
Yeah, just a little bit. Unfortunately, in a 1v1s, those little bit difference can sometimes be the difference between the game. Also,
you nitpick the little things so much more in 1v1.
All about compounding interest.
Oh look, all of Rahi's stuff is frozen. I wonder how that happened.
Yeah, well, Cubit not making much money though himself either.
No, the reactors are what both players are going into. The oxygen should be valuable enough for them to pull in enough cash, but as you say, not a lot for either. Both players pretty short on it, so you have to wonder if that freeze was even worth it.
See, Cubit needs 12k for the upgrade, needs 10 more k. Actually, we get it. Well, 4k if you sell. Rahi needs 15k for the upgrade. So another 12k to get to the upgrade. So Cubit should be able to upgrade first, assuming he plays his hand correctly. And then he's going to have to deal with the extremely space-constrained found that he chose.
Yeah, that's the strange thing, is after this next upgrade, if he takes the 2 tiles next to him, that's it. That's all he's got. Or 3 tiles next to him, excuse me, but still.
I almost think it would be better for him to found on this plateau over to the left with the 3 iron on top of it. Sure, that iron won't be as good to start, but eventually it's going to diminish and be the same anyway, but you can go 3 different ways there with your claims.
It's true.
Versus here,
particularly valuable with the power surges.
Cubit's going to be shipping some stuff somewhere, or you're going to have to go into teleportation or something.
2 uranium mines coming up.
Uranium's not that valuable.
No, it feels like a setup to go into nuclear. It's a nice idea and all, but 2 uranium tiles is an awful lot to take, but nuclear plants really don't cost that much anyway when it comes to uranium, so I'm kind of curious to see what's going to happen here. That said, Cubit still HQ and more cash than Rahi. Rahi at HQ 2 had to rotate out of the reactors and on into glass kilns, only just now is going to make it all the way up to 3.
Not too far behind, but you'd rather be keeping pace with a robot as a nomad. Rahi going to move into 2 nuclear plants herself once she actually gets enough money to move into that second nuclear plant. Cubit only going into 1 nuclear plant but has double adjacency, which means Cubit's going to have a lot of extra uranium. Also moving into a single solar panel, which provides adjacency to this 1 steel mill.
Yeah, and I especially... So, the thing I do like about the 2 uranium adjacency is I would be very surprised in 12 seconds if we don't see an adrenaline boost purchased out of Cubit. An adrenaline boost on even a single nuclear plant with some adjacency under a goon squad, that's basically still better than an adrenaline boost on a geotherm with a goon squad, and that's a play we see all the time. So this out of Cubit, now that he's played it all the way through, I like it a lot more. It's interesting that he rotates out of the uranium and into a steel mill, just at that last moment, but still, this is plenty of power production. Kind of a nice little move out of Cubit, but I'm not sure if he'll make any money, as what we haven't seen from him is a shutdown on Rahi's power resource.
Well, part of that, Cubit's going to have a hard time shutting down Rahi, as Rahi has this nice placed goon squad, only going to be able to shut down 1 of them. No spies once again, so can't check to see where the goon squads are. Have to guess, and maybe Cubit's guessing that the goon is at the end instead of the middle here, so then maybe you don't want... He's like, I don't want to throw a power surge down there, it'll just bounce. Now there is this really interesting tile that Blues identified in chat, and the game decided it's interesting, and Rahi picks it up for 20k. Going to keep it as uranium carbon combo tile next to a cave. That's a lot of utility there.
Yeah, that's weird, is what I have to say about that particular tile. That's a strange one. I have a hard time valuing that tile. That said, Cubit did knock the uranium price down pretty hard by overwhelming the market with the double uranium tile, and so it's reasonable to see Rahi take it and keep it and take it as a carbon in particular. With the cave next to it, you can still claim that, turn it into adjacent uranium later. I don't know. It's odd, and if things go south with it, well, you can always get rid of it because you're a nomad.
Rahi's going to need to think about switching out of these nuclear plants into something else, as that power price is completely dead. Cubit got so close to making power money, but 5.5k short.
Yep, usually you do have to combo. The downside of the adrenaline boost play, and 1v1 in particular, again, is that consuming or producing a resource can have a lot of impact on how quickly the price moves, and so you're jumping power on the market like that and your opponent isn't consuming it, the price will just fall very, very rapidly compared to maybe an FFA situation where there's a little more wiggle room for you. So maybe the adrenaline boost play just not quite as effective in a 1v1 as we're used to seeing in that FFA. Did Rahi really get rid of one of her? Alright, fair enough. I guess it's just a water pump now. I guess that works. Just got 1 lonely nuclear plant set powered off.
Correct. I guess figuring that power's going to become expensive sometime in the near future, and right now she is in double glass kilns, so using a lot of silicon, so just didn't want to lose that silicon that she will need later.
That's fair. It's a good thing she has a lot stockpiled right now with it frozen, but even after upgrading, almost 500 left in the warehouses to use later. So Rahi, despite being a little bit behind on the road to HQ3, does manage to get to 4 Cubit.
Yeah, and has almost the same amount of cash right after upgrading HQ4 as Cubit, going to go into double electronics factories at her one headquarters and the other moving into double electrolysis reactors. Those words are too close to each other.
That's fair. I think the big thing that we're seeing here is Cubit. I feel like a lot of this is just going to be impacted. Cubit's not allowed to keep these things next to his base, so he needs a lot of steel. A lot of his steel is sitting out in the middle of nowhere. It's got some adjacency, but it's not great. I mean, it's pretty ridiculous to me that steel is $114, and Cubit only has one steel mill down, and it's not even next to his base. That's just driving me a little crazy right now. Magnetic storms and pirates on the board. I don't know if we had mentioned that, along with this idea that Cubit doesn't have any space next to his HQ, but that's going to become more and more impactful as time goes on this game, and Cubit already falling behind. Things are looking real bad for him.
Yeah, needs another 26k to upgrade in just steel alone. 50k for the upgrade total, has almost 30k in the bank, so Cubit's going to have to pay through the nose to get the upgrade. Cubit deciding to keep on power surging Rahi's silicon, and Rahi's silicon stockpile has almost ran out.
Yeah, she built a couple of nuclear plants, which I thought was kind of odd. That was going to stockpile. It did get rid of the glass kilns, so maybe you can kind of call it a wash in that regard, but still. Interesting to build a pair of nuclear plants there. Looks like she had scrapped out of the other one to secure a little extra water. Kind of a sensible thing to do with water creeping up pretty steadily.
So Cubit's moving into a hacker array.
Yeah, on that auctioned tile.
I'm not entirely sure what he's going to do with that. Surplus steel?
You could surplus steel. That is an option.
It's not the most efficient option.
Oh no, we're just going to short steel. Sure, why not?
Steel.
Let's win this on HQ3. I want to see it.
Well,
I mean, you never know.
I mean, Cubit has forced Rahi to mule some silicon, which Rahi has to be a little bit annoyed about that.
Yeah, I would not be happy about that if I were. On the other hand, Ceres in particular is a map where you do not need to get to HQ5 in order to try and secure a win. So I might like to see these players. I would like to see Rahi in particular use these expensive, high prices and try and force Cubit to defend himself, slow him down even more. Make sure you're using that cash, as the resources are less of an option. You can use that cash in the stock market very effectively still.
Rahi's making some decent money off of water, or would be if she was selling it down, choosing to stockpile a bunch of water instead. More mules coming out for Rahi to get the uranium. Rahi
I don't like that claim at all.
Frozen out the hacker array of Cubit, and now Rahi is an interesting decision to make, as does Cubit. They both can get the upgrades to the next level, but they both have around the same amount of cash on hand. Cubit's going to go for that upgrade, and we'll see if Rahi decides to respond in kind.
A new claim is
Yeah, I am curious if we would see, are we going to see an upgrade, or does Rahi feel comfortable trying to get aggressive? What are we... You want to respond to this in some fashion. It's either immediately upgrading because you're no longer vulnerable, or immediately getting aggressive against your opponent.
The nice thing is there's
like to see
auctions, so Rahi can think about that for a little bit.
Done. Yeah, got some time to consider
before making the decision. 70k, the question is, looking at Rahi's tiles, does she have 70k isn't quite enough to make the buy, but it's very close. And Cubit's going to have to be shipping a lot, so maybe she can squeeze in an HQ4 buyout.
Congratulations.
Heading into some glass kilns. No food being made, and that's kind of the biggest negative. That you have to potentially get into some farms, or she's moving into glass kilns now. Farms themselves are going to be pretty expensive. By that time, is Cubit going to have established himself? Probably. He's got all the steel production online. So do you instead just get aggressive against his iron? I don't know. It's kind of a weird situation, but Rahi still doesn't seem to have quite made a decision just yet.
Well, it seems like she's choosing to get aggressive, just by not going into the upgrade, but she hasn't started doing the, the preparation for it yet. There we go.
Ah, here we go. Yeah.
This will be interesting. Cubit is a little bit short to defending himself, but Rahi needs to go through 3 more shares, and Rahi decides that no, she's not going to make it, and decides to take the upgrade.
I don't like that decision. I think she could have had it. It would have required in about 5 seconds power surge landing on Cubit's iron, but with that, Cubit's set up in a position where he's basically making almost no money. And I think that could have won the game, because these steel mills, they're all power surge iron. Steel is just useless. Cubit had no stockpile of iron at that point, and he was in for a pretty rough time if that power surge had come through. And it still would be a decent option now, even without the upgrade, but it's not happening. So it seems Rahi just missed the trick on that one.
Yeah. Rahi, I guess, deciding to go for the safe play, figuring that she has the advantage right now. Now, what I'd like to see out of Rahi is to come up with some sort of late game moves to secure the deal. Adrenaline boosting nuclear plants, that's a good idea. But
Yeah, I'll take that.
maybe some optimization centers coming out wouldn't be a bad idea. Rahi, she does have carbon to move into chemicals, which is what you need for those optimization centers, or a hacker array. One of those 2 tools. Offworld's not an option, 160k just to put one down for Rahi, and 28k launches.
Yeah, that's not a particularly pleasant thing. While we're talking about Rahi's carbon, I do want to point out for why I didn't like this tile. When she took this low carbon tile, I said I don't like that. And the reason, for anybody who hadn't noticed, is just to the north of her carbon uranium combo tile, there is a cave. She's put herself in a situation where she can't rotate these tiles easily into either carbon or uranium. They're pretty much stuck as either carbon or bad carbon with some uranium next to it, rather than being able to just swap back and forth and more effectively use the adjacencies. It's just one of those tricky little things with caves you've got to be watching out for.
Yeah, that'll be a little bit better once the next patch comes out, because holding down the Z key will highlight caves, right?
Yeah, that was a request that I made at some point when I was like, oh, that's a cave. I didn't realize. Oh, yeah. Why have we been so stupid? What if we just highlighted caves? Wouldn't that be cool?
It would.
Then it happened.
It would. That being said, Rahi has a lot of cash right now, and Cubit is still 1 HQ behind. Cubit can take the upgrade, but is going to need to defend himself first, and he's starting to do that. Cubit has been hacking prolifically right now, but I'm not sure how much value Cubit has gotten out of those hacks.
Yeah, he's surplusing carbon at this point, which does not seem like a bad idea to me. It is going to keep Rahi from maybe going into the hacker carbon play as easily. It certainly cuts into her profits, but still, Cubit not in a particularly pleasant position. About 100,000 down in cash right now.
Okay.
Electronics factory is coming out from Cubit. That's probably shouldn't be very good.
No, going into chemicals would be strictly better than electronics right now. I mean, sure, chemicals will use more carbon, and Cubit doesn't have a source of carbon. Okay, no, Cubit has just moved into a source of carbon, so yes, going to chemicals would have been strictly better.
I do want to point out, I'm severely disappointed in the magnetic storms and pirates are both still 3k apiece.
Yeah.
Oh, look at all that steel! Look at it! Look at that! That's 120 steel in the sky! And it just goes on through.
Yeah, something definitely would be really good to use.
It's just, it's a small thing. It does not come up time, and it patch just the magnetic storms and pirates. But when your opponent founds in a position where they only have 8 tiles that they even can put stuff next to their base, and then on top of that, they choose to only use 7 of them. That's when you're really looking for those magnetic storms and pirates to get some extra work done compared to what you would have normally expected.
So the one thing, as I'm looking at Rahi's base, right, she is over 100k ahead of Cubit. And Cubit does not have an optimization center of his own, just the hacker array. But I don't see I'd like to see something from Rahi for this late game to propel her into the victory.
Yeah, you would usually like to see that hack array come somewhere, even if it's just on Silicon. Cupid does have access to some of it, but you can force rotations out of him. There are all kinds of little moves you can make that will make a really big difference when it comes to this late stage of the game. And Rahi just not really set up to make any of them yet. Hasn't really made a commitment toward the late game. That said, has a pile of cash, and sometimes that'll just get you there on its own.
Right, because Cupid does need to somehow come up with a way to equalize this cash pile, and right now the hacks aren't doing it for him. Now it's interesting, so many prices are so high above $200, neither player has gone into an optimization center, probably in large part because chems are $250, and an optimization center costs $20K to put down, so that might answer that question in and of itself as I talk through it.
Shortage on chems too really isn't good.
There's that magnetic storm.
Finally. I've been waiting for it for so long, and finally it came through. You get 2 of them when you buy one. 2! It's so good.
Well, Rahi's deciding that the best place to put her cash is in Cubit. Force Cubit to defend himself.
Yeah, I mean, it just feels like the right decision. You had if your opponents, if you buy all their stock, they just lose the game. It turns out that can be a nice move sometimes. I don't know.
Now, Cubit is in chem, so Cubit could build a 20K optimization center and start optimizing chemicals.
The black market is
It is an option. It would make you money. It would make you more money than constantly shorting surplusing things.
Yeah, constantly surplusing things does not really get you there most of the time, end of the day. I'm particularly surprised to see a glass surplus coming in when it feels like transitioning into glass shouldn't be all that difficult, but maybe Cubit just disagrees. I mean, these electronics factories are still there, and they're making me sad this time. Could have been reactors,
Cubit has
chemicals, these could have been glass kilns. I mean, it's
3
just sad.
silicon quarries in operation right now, transitioning into the $100 per tile without adjacency glass kiln seems, like you said, way better than surplusing it.
Yeah.
Just as he goes into a single glass kiln, which is making $250 with the adjacency.
Yep. Down to 160 once he's crafted one of his, but it would have been an option while his quarry was mutiny to just transition all these into glass pretty easily. I mean, silicon was like $20. I don't know. It's a little strange. Cubit seems to be falling behind step by step, but Rahi's also struggling to make some money. Cubit, at least he has been effective with the black market this game. Rahi doing the best she can to set up so the power surges aren't super effective, but still Cubit always manages to find one hit or another, and so he is still staying in this, but certainly behind when it comes to stock at this point. We'll see if his hack array usage can keep him in it. Right now, though, it's doing nothing.
Yeah, Rahi is going into hack array herself, and she just hacked up into carbon, and she has a nice 700 stockpile of carbon, so she can keep that up. That's going to turn into a nice amount of a cash advantage, and she does have the stock advantage over Cubit. Does have the water income advantage, which is always nice when life support's high.
Certainly is.
So as long as she doesn't make any major mistakes, she should win this. But
yeah, always got to be careful with that, though.
This is
always interesting. You find those mistakes when you're in a position like this, right? That was. So the key, the trick here will be if she knows all of those traps lie and just to avoid them. I'm a little concerned about water in particular. Water over 100 per second. This is one of those interesting times when the sneaky robotic bonuses will come up and get you. This idea that they have a lot of territory, that maybe get some good adjacency bonuses going. A little bit less true with Cubit this game, unfortunately, but in particular on Ceres, those life support costs are really high, and so you always have to think, how much more money would Rahi have if she wasn't having to cover these life support costs this whole time? Steel mills coming down for our Nomad. All right then.
Late patent lab coming out for Qubit.
Yeah, that is a late patent lab, no doubt about it. $300 chems too. Interesting. Could it be teleportation?
Nanotech.
Oh no, it's nanotech. Okay, sure. What do I know? At least magnetic storms are up to costing 14k. I mean, that's something. Something a little bit more reasonable. Although Qubit is the one with 2 magnetic storms stored away right now. That's driving me crazy.
So
I want to point out, by the way, that I really don't like Rahi's, especially with his solar flare. His water is kind of offensive because this could be. You could have switched over to using, and I think you should have switched over to using your solar condensers.
Yeah.
So there are no dust storms on Ceres. That's kind of a really big deal when it comes to using solar condensers because you're not going to get bitten by the dust storm. There's always the chance of the solar flare coming in, helping you out, and the production is also pretty good compared to a low. Even with nighttime getting in the way, you have the option of going to liquid batteries. I mean, at this stage of the game, I really prefer the ice to stick into all these low ones.
Yeah. And while we've been talking, Qubit has slowly clawed his way back into striking distance of Rahi. Now, Rahi still has the stock advantage and the cash advantage, but it's no longer as big as it used to be.
Yeah, Qubit's been making some solid inroads toward winning this game.
As Kat asks on chat, what is Rahi planning to do with slant drilling?
Congratulations.
Everything that she has is low, so slanting lows isn't really going to help you. She still has four return of claims, which you could use to rotate stuff around if needed.
I'm genuinely looking, right? The only thing I can think of is to, like, instead of transitioning into ice, you transition into, like, a medium water tile and slant it, or maybe this high over here. No, I mean, that's only got one adjacent anyway.
Yeah, I think it would have been much better just to go straight into nanotech.
Yeah, nanotech could have been pretty cool.
I mean, prevent Qubit from getting nanotech, even if you don't use it yourself and steals 200, that's one of the ways you could,
just
win. You could go into, as Kat points out on chat, liquid batteries, which...
No, yeah, liquid batteries is what I like. But...
which would be pretty good. Then you can get out of this low water and use those claims more efficiently. But that being said, Rahi is 50% of the way on the buy to Qubit, and Qubit is 15. That counter's not entirely accurate, but it's close enough. The game should be over.
Yeah, I do want to point out, Qubit also in the low water. It's got for life, and Rahi was able to shut down Qubit's water. Well, that left a pretty clear path for her toward finishing up this game, and Qubit is in fact going to just go ahead and give it up. Rahi going to keep her position as king, I guess.
King of the hill.
Still king of the hill.
We don't have a good gender-neutral monarch term that sounds good, and Monarch of the Hill doesn't quite have the same ring to it.
That's true. That really does not have the same ring. I'll give you that
King,
one. So
King
yeah,
of the
Rahi
Hill.
is still king of the hill, managing to take down Qubit. That's no small feat.
Yeah, Qubit's been playing a lot. Qubit's been increasing the quality of his play after taking a long break. So definitely a solid opponent. But yeah, Rahi just able to come out ahead there. And let's take a look in where actually she made all of her money in the production and the sales, because it wasn't quite. Some of those tiles were autoed off for a long time, or
Yeah, those farms especially. Those were sitting around doing nothing.
yeah, and the water could have been better. For example,
But the glass really came through. I mean, you had warehouses at the colony.
mhm.
You went nomad. I always like nomad when you've got warehouses at the colony, because you've got the silicon secured already, and the expensive glass isn't going to hurt you. That was one thing I liked about both players' founds, was they avoided the warehouses, right? And they just left those to potentially pull in profit from. But clearly, Qubit missed it when it came to glass. I mean, he pulled something in off of it, but only 89. He had just as much access to silicon.
Yeah, and like when glass was good, Qubit was surplusing it.
Yep.
With 3 silicon quarries. We mentioned that.
With 3 silicon quarries that were making $20 silicon. I mean,
Yeah.
one of them was mutinied. I'll give him that. But the other, that was one of those questionable decisions combined with the found location itself that really felt like it contributed toward Qubit's loss that game.